So hello, turn my table a little bit more. This is Father Bruce Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Coastal Bend Community Empowerment. And my friends who I've been working with most recently are friends from the Helping Homeless community. And today I have Rose Ann Garcia with me, and we're doing a bonus video on the part 4, what happened to us, in the video series on Voice of People Experiencing Homelessness in Corpus Christi. So let me turn this to Rose, and Rose, you and I we've looked at the script and or heard the video about what happened to us. So can I just open this up to you and find out what is important to you, what you would like to say, whatever comments you would like to make about what happened to us, video number 4.
Well, if people just took the time to ask what happened to you instead of what are you doing, or why don't you just move around, or why are you still here,
or what's wrong with you?
Yeah, or especially that one, what's wrong with you? Well, what's wrong with me is there's no connection. Nobody seems to care. Not nobody. There's a large amount of people that don't care. They want to play a blame game, or they want to have this a leverage over the homeless community, or this facade that we're just bums and we don't care.
So what is it that people see that that becomes a stereotype or a generalization or an assumption? What are they looking at and making the assumption that something's wrong with you? What do they see? What are they looking at?
A lot of it is even like what I say about myself. When growing up, I always thought like the bag lady was what a homeless person looks like. Somebody that's dirty, somebody that's on drugs, or an alcoholic, a drunkard, someone that is a criminal, but they think this in their head, and then what they put into motion, what makes them say these things, is a lot of times they see us that, we're tired. There's nowhere for us to go lay down. Sometimes at night there's violence and stuff, and you see some people that during the day they're laying down. They think that this person is lazy. They see laziness. They see like somebody just doesn't want to move. They've given up. They have no hope. But there's other things that have happened.
And they see addiction.
Yes.
They see
anger,
people making bad choices,
yes.
Not helping themselves.
Yeah. And that's it. But that they think that we're not helping ourselves. A lot of times we don't know where to go.
Yeah. Well, underneath those behaviors, there's something else. But I mean, are there any other symptoms, the things that people look at and they identify people experiencing homelessness as being, something just based on those symptoms? I think of addiction. I think of.
We look like we're irresponsible. We look like we just don't care. We're not going to we don't take into account our actions, that we're just carefree. We're just out there doing whatever we want, no rules. Right. Irresponsible people that just.
So there's a lot of stereotypes and assumptions and generalizations about people who are experiencing homelessness because they act differently. Maybe they think differently. They are feeling differently. Where is that coming from? What happened to us that makes us do those things, or think those things, or feel those things, or act in those ways? What happened to us?
Some type of trauma. Sometimes it's domestic violence. Sometimes it's a loss of a job, a loss of a loved one, self-abuse, just not having a support system. It doesn't help, if we don't know how to deal with it before we're homeless. It gets even worse when we become displaced.
Okay, trauma. Okay, so you say trauma. Tell me about trauma. What is trauma?
It could be anything. It could be, for instance, like for myself, domestic violence. I came out of a really bad relationship. But that's not the only thing that is experienced. A lot of people experience domestic violence. They experience mental, emotional abuse. They might have generational problems already, like mental health problems that related to maybe child abuse as a child, not knowing how to get out of those situations, sexual abuse, just many things. Abandonment is a major
Even
one.
emotional neglect
Yes.
is one, childhood emotional neglect. Any sort of adverse childhood experiences or adverse community environments.
Right.
Those are the events. And I want to say, turn the table to me just for a second. So I want to say that events are not the trauma. Oh, jeez.
I got you.
We'll fix it. So the events themselves are not the trauma. They're trauma-inducing events.
Yes.
The trauma is the combination of experiences of traumatizing events and the way it's experienced, because not everyone experiences the same trauma in the same way. Some traumas just affect some people worse than it affects other people. So it's not just the event, it's the way it's experienced.
Yes.
And so I'll just say one more thing, I'll turn it back to you. The experience, anytime we experience something that is overwhelming, it overwhelms our nervous system, and when it overwhelms our nervous system, it hijacks our prefrontal cortex, our thinking systems. It hijacks our emotions. It hijacks our ability to make good decisions. It just takes over in some physical ways. If we experience an event as overwhelming, then we're dysregulated is probably the best word to use. Our nervous system is dysregulated, and so we are cognitively dysregulated, we are emotionally dysregulated, we are behaviorally dysregulated, and then you can talk some more about the re-experience of those events just in your own head, which means that you're just constantly being dysregulated. So, okay, I just wanted to dig into that a little bit more about trauma. What is trauma? So what else would you like to say about what is trauma? The original experience or the re-experience of trauma?
It's hard because the original experience itself, it's hard going through that. But then when you experience it over and over and over, you don't know when it's coming.
So you experience it over and over and over.
There's triggers.
That.
There's different triggers.
Like what?
For instance, even a smell, the way somebody's demeanor is. We have trust issues. It affects relationships, not just like love relationships between a man and a woman. It affects friendships, relationships in jobs, going out in the community itself. The trust itself is, are you gonna trust these people who your advocates and your mentors and people who do outreach? Can you trust them enough that they're not gonna take what you say about yourself? It's like being naked in your own self, not in the physical sense, but nakedness with all your guards down and saying my story or what's happened to me, and then feeling vulnerable in the sense like, am I gonna be made fun of? What if they judge me now? What can I, you almost have like an alter ego that you build, because some people's alter ego is like, they're just this rough and tough and, machismo type of thing, when inside they're just screaming and crying on the inside and don't know how to deal with their emotions.
It's their mask, so they don't have to expose their real feelings and their real experience.
Yes.
And their memories of their trauma. Trauma, people say, well, hell, everybody's traumatized. We all have something traumatic happen to us. Why don't you just get over it? Why don't you just pick yourself up?
It's hard. It's hard because when you experience trauma, especially even if it's like from childhood on, and even at my age, at 44, I'm the type of person, I freeze, and I'm passive aggressive, and I feel like I don't have a say in things. And then when I feel I have enough in me to explode, that's exactly what I do, and I still get nothing done. Because who wants to be with a belligerent person? But when I'm screaming, get away from me, I don't want you around, I don't want you to know I'm really saying, please don't leave. I need help.
So you know what I want to say? Turn the camera to me. So what I want to say about that is, if you think that trauma is something that you can just shake off, if you think that trauma is something you can just pray or meditate or think your way out of, you don't understand trauma. That's not trauma. It could be stress, could be low grade, medium grade, high grade stress, but that's not trauma. You don't just shake off trauma. Trauma, it was an overwhelming experience. Yes. And it keeps coming back and overwhelming you. You know, a little story I want to throw in here is Peter Levine, who talks about, if you see someone coming out down the street, some guy coming down the street, yelling and screaming and waving his hands around, and he's coming towards you, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond to him? And most people say, I'm going to get out of his way. I'm not, you're not going to help him? Well, no, he's crazy. I'm going to get out of his way. I'm going to avoid him. I'm going to run away from him. Well, what if you could pan the camera out, and what you see behind the guy who's running around looking crazy is a lion that's coming after him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what if trauma is the lion, and all the symptoms that you see, this crazy behavior, this yelling, screaming, kind of weird stuff, all the external surface symptoms, they make perfect sense if you know that there's a lion chasing you. Well, if the original experience was like a lion that was chasing you, and you think, I am not safe, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. Yeah. And then what if you continue to experience that lion because it was so overwhelming that whenever you feel triggered, anything that triggers you, the sight, the smell, an emotional trigger, a sound, a perfume, whatever, someone else that's coming at you,
a roll of their eyes, a snicker, just.
Or really physically threatening you.
Yes.
Whenever you re-experience, not remember, but whatever causes you to re-experience that trauma, it's just exactly like that lion is coming at you again. Right now, that lion is coming at you. You are overwhelmed. Your nervous system is overwhelmed. Your emotional systems, your cognitive systems, your behavioral systems are overwhelmed. If you don't understand, if you think that you can just shake off trauma, or that you can just think your way through it or meditate your way through it, then you're not talking about trauma. That's not what trauma is. Trauma is overwhelming, and it's reoccurring even after the original experience. It comes back not like a memory, but just a re-experience of the trauma. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Let me give you the camera back.
It's as though we are in this time warp at times, because you lose who you were. At times you're mourning yourself. And when you experience more trauma, especially on the streets, it can, when you're in a house or your house and you have those issues that, because problems don't go away because you have a home. You still have issues. And, when you have problems, like, or you've had sexual abuse or verbal, emotional, physical abuse, but then you have the same types of things that happen to you on the street. You still haven't fixed the trauma you've experienced pre-homelessness or pre-displacement.
Right.
Then you have trauma on top of trauma.
Right.
And so we don't have, at times, our body, our makeup, our emotions are not healed enough, or maybe they never will be, to be able to face more trauma. So it's like, for me, I freeze. I shut down. I become rude and mean, and I push people away. It makes me feel like, am I worthy of? And yes, we're all worthy. We're all important. We need to know this. But until we face that lion, per se, and say, stop, you monster, A lot of us don't have it in us. We don't know, some of us will never know that we are stronger than that.
Right. I'm looking at the clock. We've got about, if we can finish up in 30 seconds, which you probably won't, that would be a 15-minute video. So I'm going to try to figure out how to wrap this up. I guess what I want to say is, how do people recover? I'm going to ask, how do people recover from trauma? How does someone find healing for trauma? What helps?
A lot of times, when we have to come to terms ourselves with who we are. With that comes learning your triggers and talking to people, letting them know how you feel, what might trigger you, why you are the way you are. On the other end, for those of you out there that see people like myself and others who are displaced, always remember, what if it was you? How would you want somebody to respond to you, your children, your parents, anybody that you love? Just think about what if it was you and how you would want to be treated.
And I'm going to add one more thing to that. What I want to add is that if trauma is induced by an event that makes you feel unsafe and disempowered, so the line is coming and there's not a dang thing I can do about it. What helps people to recover from trauma is feeling safe.
Yes.
And feeling empowered.
There you go.
And so one thing about the housing, even though that's not it's not everything, it is one of the things that's really important, because if you can physically feel safe, my body is in a safe place. I'm not going to get stabbed. My backpack's not going to get stolen. My property is going to be okay. I have a lock on the door. I am safe.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
And you need, but I heard you saying there needs to be more, which would be a psychologically safe environment.
Yes.
You need a relationship system and a psychological environment that's also safe. But getting your body safe is the first thing.
That's the first thing right there, because when you physically can say, I am safe, you can move mountains. But when you're just here, there, and everywhere, without a roof over your head, not knowing what the weather's going to bring, much less what the person next to you is going to bring, or what's going to come from the north, south, east, or west, you're lost. And that in itself is trauma every single day and more stress.
Yes.
Housing is key. A roof over our head is key.
A lock on the door.
A lock on the door is key, because what that does is that when you're safe, you're not just safe physically. This is safe. This is safe. This is safe. And if you're safe all the way around, you're centered. And once you're centered, you start to have clearer mind, a clearer heart, everything just falls into place.
And what you can do is then people can be empowered. Okay, you need to get your official photo ID. You need to get a clinic card. You need to get your birth certificate. You need to get a job. Well, you need an address to tell the employer.
Every single one of those things.
And you need a phone, and you need all those things. But after you are safe, then you can start to do all those things.
And
those
trust.
things are empowering. Trust is part of the psychological environment, the relational environment. So it takes a physically safe environment and the trust and the relationship systems that are safe. And then all those things that your case manager was telling you, you got to do this and you got to do this. And you try to do some of those things, and you're just like running with lead weights on your feet, right? And then as soon as you finally get something, like you get your photo ID and your birth certificate and your medication, and that's in your backpack, and then you turn around, what happened to my backpack? Who stole my backpack?
And
I had all my things in there,
if
right?
It's not a homeless person, it's the police throwing it away, and you're just...
Or the police, what do they call it? What's a sweep?
There you
and
go.
they throw everything away. So now you've lost all your documentation, all your medication, which is unsafe. But the point I'm getting to is that's disempowering again.
Yes.
So once you have a safe place, then you can be empowered to do all those things, including getting a job, getting an income.
You can store your med somewhere. You can store your backpack somewhere, and be able to leave your home, come back, and do it all over again the next day.
Like one of our friends, Mike, I'm thinking about when he got a job and he was paying rent, and he had his dog Chief in the apartment with him, and he was like, he had a safe place, and he was empowering himself to actually have an income, to pay his rent, to take care of his dog. That was empowering for him, right?
Exactly.
So having a safe place, and then being empowered to do all the things that it takes for your own well-being, and to reintegrate and reincorporate back into community or society again.
You can start walking with your head up instead of looking down and being embarrassed of yourself.
Yeah.
with a roof over your head and a shower and being safe and knowing that you're going to be okay.
Right.
You can go to sleep in peace. A night's worth of sleep makes a difference.
Yes.
Your whole demeanor, your train of thinking,
Right.
you can get up and feel good to go and ask, well, how do I get my ID? How do I achieve these things? Let's go make up applications for jobs. Housing first. Housing first.
So you just keep the camera there, but just instead of when we see people who are experiencing homelessness on the street and they look lazy, they look irresponsible, they look like they don't care about the mess that they're making, because they're like, in some ways they've regressed to when they were a kid, and who cared about the mess that I was making, right? Or you see them self-medicating, using drugs, being addicted, because it is a way to self-medicate, which is a way to cope with and to cover up all the trauma that continues to come back and back and back. So when we just look at the surface at people who are on the streets experiencing homelessness, we're not seeing. We're just seeing the surface. We're not seeing what happened. That's the name of this video that we're talking about. Video number 4. The name of that is "What Happened to Us."
Right.
So instead of saying "What's wrong with you," or what else do people say? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Or, why are you acting like
Why
this?
are you acting? Why do you act like this? Why don't you care? What's wrong with you? The question is, what happened to you?
My mom used to tell me, what happened to you, Roseanne? You need to snap out of it.
Yes, snap out of it.
And I understood what she was telling me. A lot of times she'd tell me, you're going too fast.
Yeah.
You know, what happened? And just the fact that she would say, what happened?
That's a better question.
Yeah. And I was able to say, well, whatever it was that was going on. And then she'd come back and tell me, well, you need to stop doing what you're doing. Or she'd tell me, go to sleep.
Yeah. So there's a number of things that can happen. We could have a catastrophic loss of a family and friendship network. We could have a catastrophic loss of jobs and income. We could have so many different things happen to us. But by and large, people who are experiencing homelessness and they're on the street right now, what happened to them? Trauma. Trauma is what happened to
And you
them.
have to change people, places, and things. But the first thing that's going to help you do that is getting a home.
Yes.
Because if you don't have change, you can't change people and things, like the things that you do. A lot of times our addictive behaviors.
Right.
We're going to go to people who have the same addictive behaviors as we do.
Yes.
So that there's your people and the things. But the places, if we had a place to go home every day, to feel better about ourselves, to feel safe, to not feel so down, that's the first step to helping with that
Safety
traumatic
and
experience.
empowerment.
Yes.
Okay, well, so we went 22 minutes, 23 minutes nearly. Any last comments?
Just take into consideration what happened. Don't ever forget. It could be you, which I hope it never is. But we matter. We're not invisible. And something happened for us to be where we're at. And we cannot give up. It's key to have a support system. A lot of times family isn't blood. It could be a stranger off the street. And what you say to us can make a difference.
And when you see people on the street and you wonder, what can I do? The answer is not just, oh, give them more food and more clothes. I mean, that's okay, but that's not the answer. And the answer is not criminalizing their behavior, and the answer is not judging them. The answer is healing.
Yes.
Healing the original trauma that keeps coming back and back and back. So when we look at people and we ask, so what happened to them? Okay, it was trauma. So what did they need? What can we do? Well, you can help them get into a house. You can help them to take care of the business that they need to take care of to start getting back, finding their life again.
And just asking, what happened?
Yes, and get to know them.
How can I help you?
Get to know people and ask them, how can I help you, right? And then trust them to tell you, this is what you could do that would help me. All right, good video, getting a little closer. All right, thank you for listening for 25 minutes. We appreciate it. This is just our little conversation, and we invite you to join our conversation if you like on video number 4, or part number 4, which is what happened to us. All right, thank you for listening.